Yeah, like Hare Krishna. Welcome to the regular Sunday discussion on Bhagavad Gita from Sri Krishna Balaram Mandir. So we will start with Jai Radha Madhava prayers. Give me 1 second. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram.
Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram.
Jayo Nitai Gauranga, Jayo Nitai Gauranga, Jayo Nitai Gauranga, Jayo Nitai Gauranga.
Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Jaya Nitai Gauranga.
Jayo Srinivas Govinda, Jayo Srinivas Govinda, Jayo Srinivas Govinda, Jayo Srinivas Govinda.
Jaya Srinivas Govinda, Jaya Srinivas Govinda, Srinivas Govinda, Jaya Srinivas Govinda.
Jayo Prahlad Narsimha, Jayo Prahlad Narsimha, Jayo Prahlad Narsimha, Jayo Prahlad Narsimha.
Jaya Prahlad Narsimha, Jaya Prahlad Narsimha, Prahlad Narsimha, Jaya Prahlad Narsimha.
Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada,
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga ki jai, Shri Shri Nivas Govinda ki jai, Shri Bhlad Narsimhadev ki jai, Jagat Guru Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. So before we start, we will invoke the auspicious holy name of the Lord. So please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. So today we'll be discussing from the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And today we'll be discussing the 15th verse. And this is one of a very prominent verse, very often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, he traveled all over the world and spread this knowledge. And the book we are reading from, this Bhagavad Gita as it is a contribution by Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, in his many lectures and conversations, he would quote this verse. And there's a reason, because this is a very conclusive verse, very instructive verse. So we'll get more into the details. So I'll recite the verse few times, and then we'll read the translation, synonyms, and purport, and we'll discuss further. So this 8th chapter, 15th verse. Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gataha. Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gataha. I'll repeat once again. Mamupetya punarjanma dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana samsiddhim paramam gataha. Synonyms. Mam, unto me. Upetya, achieving. Punaha, again. Janma, birth. Dukhalayam, place of miseries. Ashashvatam, temporary. Na, never. Apnuvanti, attain. Mahatmanaha, the great souls. Samsiddhim, perfection. Paramam, ultimate. Gataha, achieved. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. Purport. Since this temporary material world is full of the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death, naturally he who achieves the highest perfection and attains the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavana, does not wish to return. The supreme planet is described in Vedic literature as beyond our material vision, and it is considered the highest goal. The Mahatmas, great souls, receive transcendental messages from the realized devotees and thus gradually develop devotional service in Krishna consciousness and become so absorbed in transcendental service that they no longer desire elevation to any of the material planets, nor do they even want to be transferred to any spiritual planet. They only want Krishna's association and nothing else. Such great souls in Krishna consciousness attain the highest perfection of life. In other words, they are the supreme souls. Thus ends the purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanjena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this eighth chapter and this particular verse we are discussing today, this 15th, is a very instructive, as I was mentioning. And this chapter, the chapter name is actually Attaining the Supreme. So Krishna is directly speaking about what happens if we attain Krishna, right? So if we want to analyze this verse, there are so many things Krishna is mentioning in this one verse. This is the power of Bhagavad Gita and the Supreme Lord Himself speaking. With very few words, Krishna can, give a very huge meaning. So this verse talks about what happens if one approaches Krishna. It also talks about what is this material world that we are living in. It also gives a definition of Mahatma. Right? We all know the word Mahatma. So it's very famously used, and we all know very famous personality. Gandhiji. He was known as Mahatma Gandhi. But what is the actual definition of Mahatma? This verse talks about that, and it also talks about perfection, the ultimate perfection. Samsiddhim means perfection, and Paramam, ultimate. What is it that's the ultimate perfection? So this is actually, this verse is a very conclusive verse, very instructive verse. If just this verse one takes to heart and tries to understand and follow, actually one can attain ultimate perfection. So let's you know uh, get into the details of this verse. So first Krishna is saying, Mam upetya. Mam means unto me. Upetya means achieving. So once one achieves Krishna, one attains Krishna, or basically one goes to Krishna, right? What is it? Punarjanma is saying the punaha means again, and janma means birth. This is actually first clarification Krishna is giving. A lot of the modern scientists, modern world, they don't know about rebirth. They don't know about punarjanma. They only know about birth, janma. And what happens after death? They don't know. What happens to the soul after the death? They don't know. They don't even sometimes accept that there is a soul. Well, even if we say okay, there is no soul, they do accept that there is a life force, right? The scientific you know community definitely makes a distinction between a living being and a dead being. Right? So that distinction is definitely there. So there is a living being and there's a dead being. And what is it? The difference? The life is missing. What is this life? Where does it come from? How did it come into a material body? Right? The body is nothing but matter. Right? There are so many lifeless things around us: the table, the chair, the stone. There is no life in it. But then sometimes the living being, it is also made of matter. One can totally deconstruct any living being and boil it down to chemicals, liquid, and different kinds of chemical compounds available on this earth, literally, right? When a person eats food, various minerals and nutrients and various chemicals are absorbed into the body, and the body is built. The bones are mostly calcium, the skin and all, flesh, hydrocarbons, water, and unnecessary stuff is flushed out. So literally it's 100% matter. Now within matter, suddenly how did this life come into existence? And when the person dies, what happens to this life? Where did this come from and where did it go? What is this life force? There is no scientific instrument that can even observe it. All other phenomena, there are different ways of observing a lot of scientific phenomena. Even the uh, light waves which the eyes can't perceive, there are ways to capture and understand. Even the sounds which the ears can't perceive, right? There is a specific range, particular decibels to particular, I think 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz or something the ear can hear, right? But beyond that there is ultrasonic and there is different kind of sound waves which we can't hear, but there are instruments to capture. So in the same way, we are not able to see the living force directly, but are there any instruments to capture, whether it's its existence, its dimension, how it looks, what it is? No, we don't have. So that's a question unanswered by the modern so-called advanced civilization of our world. A question is unanswered. What is the question? What is this life? What happened to the life when the person dies? The body is still there. Everything that was there in the body just before the person dies and after the person dies is exactly there. What is it that has caused the living force to disappear from the body? There is no question, right? And that is where the Bhagavad Gita comes into picture. The real wisdom, the real knowledge. We are all living beings, and an interesting or important aspect of our life is to understand what is this life, what is this living force. Am I this body? Am I matter? Am I just a bunch of grouping of chemicals assembled together, or am I something else? And what happens to me when the body becomes unusable, right? What happens when the body becomes unusable for the living soul to live? The soul leaves the body. So Krishna gives that information in Bhagavad Gita. And this verse, Krishna is saying Punarjanma. He's talking about rebirth. And earlier verses, Krishna has mentioned, Tatta Dehantra Prapti, that the soul at the end of life, it takes on another body. And that is a cycle of, uh, Janma, Mrityu, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, So the soul takes on one body, gives up body, takes another body, gives up another body. So that is a cycle we are aware of. But Krishna is saying there is a way. And in this verse, he's saying that we can break apart this cycle. That means no more rebirth. Napnuvanti. Krishna is saying that this Punarjanma, there won't be any more. Na means never. And attain. You will never again get another birth. So that's a, oh wow. So what will happen? Because the soul at the end of the body takes on another body. But if it does not get another body, what happens to the soul? And then Krishna is saying that, back to the what we were talking about, if one approaches Krishna, one attains Krishna, there won't be rebirth. So that's one thing Krishna is saying. And then rebirth among where? Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Krishna is talking about the current world we are living in. Krishna has classified by two words. Krishna has characterized our whole world, our existence that we are living has been actually scientifically categorized, characterized. We call Earth, we call world, there's different planets, different names. But what is the characteristic of this essential, inherent characteristic of this place? That Krishna is giving two qualifiers. First, he's saying is Dukhalayam. This world is a place of Dukha, isn't it? And today is even more apparent that this world is actually a place of misery. We see the pandemic is spreading very, creating havoc all over the world. A lot of people are losing their loved ones. There is a lot of grief. There is a lot of disappointment. There is a lot of sadness in everyone's hearts. And what is Krishna saying that about this world? He's saying the exact same thing. It is Dukkhalayam. This is a place of misery. Well, one would say no. It is because of the pandemic. Now, there is so much, miserable situation. Otherwise, it was okay, right? Otherwise, it was okay. People think, right? Because of Corona, so and so is happening, and so people have lost, so and so family members. Otherwise, it was okay. Right? That's what people think. But unfortunately, that is also not true. Why? The otherwise okay situation is Krishna is saying Ashashvatam. It is very temporary. Even though we think it was okay before Corona, it was all okay. We think, right? People were alive whom I knew, they were all fine. Everything was good. Economy was good. Country was not in such a bad shape. It was good, right? I think. But what Krishna is saying here is that no, even though when there is no dukkha, the situation of not having a misery is very temporary. Ashashvatam. Why do we say that? Are we saying that some or the other time pandemic has to come? It doesn't come. In the last 100 years, it was not there. So there were people who were born, during that time and even left. Well, Ashashvatam means the so-called good situation does not last. Even if there was no pandemic, is it guaranteed that every one of us will be alive? No. As sure as death. The misery is just postponed. Because of the pandemic, the misery has been preponed. Somebody whom we think they will leave, when they are like 70 years or 80 years or 90 years, suddenly they're leaving when they are even earlier than that age. But the misery of them leaving is anyway going to be there. It just is either postponed or is it been preponed, isn't it? So that is why Krishna is saying that it is asashvatam. Even when you think everything is good, there is a stage in one's life when one might think, oh, everything is good. I have good job, good family, good children, good parents, everything. But how long is that going to stay? It's only a matter of time. Slowly, everyone will lose everything, isn't it? Even if everything naturally progresses, even if there were no, unexpected calamities, at some point of time, people become old. Everyone will lose their parents, isn't it? And as they become old, they will lose their friends, their elders, their cousins. They will lose their own life. So, what is permanent here? Nothing. All the miseries we are talking about, they're just existing, but they happen at different times. And ultimately, it all becomes a total Shramayevihi Kevalam. It is a total disappointment. The material existence is a total disappointment. All the effort, all the time, all the energy spent to build one's own life, wealth, family, children, accumulation, assets is only to be lost one by one, isn't it? Go back in history, 100 years ago, somebody who existed. Now, does he exist? No. Does his parents exist? Does his family exist? Does his wealth exist? Does his designation exist? Nothing exists. It just disappears in thin air. And as everything is being lost, it only causes misery. As one is becoming weak and old, is he happy? Is he excited? He becomes more and more depressed, disappointed. As one is losing their family members, is he happy? I heard about this from an elderly gentleman. He was around 75 years. He was telling he's very scared to pick up the phone, especially when it's coming from some very well-known friends or other people. Why? Because nowadays all he's hearing is that some or the other person is passing away, right? This is before the corona. And in a regular time also, when one becomes old, all they're hearing is the news of some close friend passing away, somebody's friend's brother passing away, because they're all in the old age, isn't it? So he's saying he's very scared because it is very disappointing. All he's hearing is only disappointing news. And there is no positive thinking around it. It is objective reality. Old age is reality. Disease is reality. Death is reality. So Krishna is saying that this place is Dukhalayam. And even if we make some adjustments, even if we think it is good, that so-called good or so-called adjustment is only temporary. There are already news, there are already some articles saying that even if this vaccine comes, there is no guarantee that it will cover all the variants. And even the vaccines that are in use, even if it covers all the variants, is there a guarantee that another virus won't come with a completely different thing? There are also predictions that there could be lot many such viruses that could come in future. So where is the end? Where is the guarantee? There isn't. So Krishna is saying, so that is the solution. What is the solution? If you come to me, Mamupetya Punarjanma, you won't have rebirth. And then what happens then? And Krishna is saying such a person who actually attains him is giving the definition of Mahatma. He's saying such a person is known as Mahatma, Mahatmanaha, the greatest Atma, a great soul. Who is a great soul? A great person is one who can solve an ultimate problem, isn't it? So in today's world, the person who has invented the vaccine, for example, will be given a great credit, right? Oh, he's solving a very great problem. But Krishna is saying that a Mahatma, a great soul, is the one who actually solves the greatest problem of our existence. The greatest problem of our existence is this repetition of cycle of birth and death. So that is why Krishna is saying, Mamapetya Punarjanma Napnumanti. He won't have repeated birth and death. So Krishna is saying, this is Krishna's verdict of who is a Mahatma. He's saying the one who, in such a way, stops this cycle of birth and death in this Dukhalayam and Ashashvatam, in this temporary and miserable world, he is a Mahatma. He is the greatest soul, one who is solving this greatest problem of our existence. What small of a problem is taking on repeated birth, death, old age, and disease? Just imagine taking one more birth is no fun at all. The Vedic literature, the Bhagavatam, even the modern science has proven that once a child is being born, he's in the womb. At seventh month, he gains complete consciousness, and 2 more months, he's totally packed up. Can you imagine being suffocated in a bag, in a small bag, with no space to even move? The child is, that's why after 7th month they see that the child sometimes is trying to stretch inside, but is packed up into these muscles and womb and everything. And sometimes, in the tummy, on the stomach, we can, observe the child, sometimes the hand or the leg is trying to push through, is trying to kick. So much inconvenience. It is said the child goes through so much misery. Can you imagine being packed up? So much birth is so miserable. And and the whole life is a struggle for existence, isn't it? From childhood to old age, studies, school, college, homeworks, job, life, family, finances, retirement, unfortunately funeral planning. So much miserable. And then repeat. How much fun is it to repeat this whole cycle? And if this thing goes on repeating and again, isn't this the greatest problem of our existence? Where is happiness? A very flickering happiness, very short-lived happiness that we get, but only struggle, struggle, struggle. So much so that struggle for existence every day is a struggle. If you stop struggling, that is also miserable, because we can't live. And if you struggle, that is also miserable, so that you can live. So there is misery no matter what. So that is why Krishna is saying that a person who solves this problem, he is a Mahatma, he is the greatest of the soul. And then he's saying that Mahatma, that great problem that a person is solving, that solution is actually Samsiddhim Paramam. It is the ultimate perfection. Samsiddhim Paramam Gataha. So they would have attained the ultimate perfection. So what is this ultimate perfection? So that is here Krishna clearly saying Mamupeda. That means going to Krishna. Then a question might arise, where will these people go? Okay, so two questions would come, right? So how do we approach Krishna? How do we attain Krishna is one thing, and one who has attained Krishna, where will they go? So how to attain Krishna is very clear, very simple. Krishna himself mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, in the beginning, actually, he mentions in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita that actually just by knowing Krishna, he says that one who is in knowledge of Krishna also attains his abode. And in the conclusive, in the 18th chapter, he also says that actually by performing devotional service, one will come back to me. So, what is the earlier verse we were talking about where Krishna says, just by knowing me, he can attain perfection? He says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tatvataha tyaktva deham punarjanmanaiti mameti so Arjuna. So, the same thing Krishna is saying actually. Again, he's using the word punarjanma. What is he saying? Janma karma chame divyam. He's saying the janma and karma, the birth and actually activities of who? Chame divyam. Cha ma me. Of me, divine divyam. Because Krishna's appearance and activities are not like the normal. Because of karma, somebody is born and is suffering. So that is one thing Krishna is saying, that by knowing the birth and activities, janma karma chame divyam, evam yo vetti tattvataha. One who knows in tattvataha. Tattvataha means absolute truth. That means one who knows actually, exactly, absolutely. Not just, oh, it was some story. Lord Krishna was born in Mathura. There was a comes a demon. All that. Okay, that is a very high level. But actuality, tattvataha. What does tattvata mean? Why does Krishna appear? When does he appear? Where is he appearing from? What is the purpose of his appearance? What is his message? What is he trying to, demonstrate? What is his actual, message that Lord is trying to give? That is called as evam yo vitti tattvataha. Vitti means to know, tattvataha in absolute truth. One who knows that tyaktva deham, tyaktva means to give up. Deham, after giving up the body. Punarjanma naiti. He says same thing Krishna is saying. If one knows Krishna actually in absolute truth, punarjanma naiti ma meti sa kaunteya. So Arjuna is saying, you will actually come to me. See, so now Krishna has revealed the formula how to not have punarjanma, how to go back to him. He's saying that one just has to know about him absolutely. And then the question will be, how can we know about Krishna? Do I need to read the whole Vedas, the Vedic literature, or should I read the Bhagavatam, or what should I be doing? Actually, to start with, just by reading Bhagavad Gita, we can know everything about Krishna. Obviously, everything is an overstatement because Krishna is unlimited. We can't know about all his unlimited potencies, but whatever is our capability, whatever limited understanding, whatever the complete level of understanding that we can get, is all available in Bhagavad Gita. And that is the reason Krishna, one of the main purpose of Krishna's appearance is to deliver this message of Bhagavad Gita. And why the message of Bhagavad Gita? Because not just Arjuna, but everyone. He wants everyone to be benefited, everyone to be delivered. So just by reading Bhagavad Gita, we can understand Krishna. And by reading Bhagavad Gita, by understanding Krishna, we can go back to Krishna. As it is said here, the first, if we have actually attained knowledge, the sign of attainment of knowledge is when we practically apply the knowledge. So that is what happens. Once we understand Krishna, we will start applying the various knowledge, information, various instructions given by Krishna. And when we apply those, we will actually go back to Krishna. So that is the first step. So we have discussed that going back to Krishna is the ultimate, it is the perfection, it is called as the greatest soul. So the first step is to understand about Krishna. That's what Krishna is saying in the earlier words we discussed. And now there is another very conclusive verse. Krishna says, by which again the same thing, how to come to him. Because in this verse he's saying, Mamopetya, by coming to me, you won't have rebirth, you will have attained perfection. So we are discussing how to come to Krishna. So we just discussed earlier that by understanding Krishna, about Krishna from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself is saying that we can go back to him. And towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna again gives one more conclusive verse, trying to tell what is it that one can definitely go to Krishna, right? So our problem statement is clear, our solution approach is clear, that we have to go to Krishna. And what does this going to Krishna mean? Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that when we say going to Krishna, that means going to Krishna's abode. That means going to Krishna's planet. So Krishna has his own planet, just like we are on this planet Earth. There is a separate planet called, it is in the spiritual world. It is said beyond the material world, there is a spiritual world. And in the spiritual world, just like there are so many planets here, there are so many planets in the spiritual world also. And in those planets, the topmost planet is known as the Goloka Vrindavan. That is where Lord Krishna is residing. And then what about all other planets in the spiritual world? There also the Lord resides, but as his expansions. So there's a separate planet for Lord Rama and his devotees. There's a separate planet for Lord Narsimha and his devotees. Separate planet for Lord Vishnu and his devotees. They're all the same. Lord Rama, Narsimha, Vishnu, Krishna, they're all the same. They're all the exact same Supreme Personality of Godhead. But to facilitate various relationships with his devotees, there are some devotees who are attached to the form of Lord Rama. They want to worship him. So, to facilitate their desire, the Lord personally expands as Lord Rama, makes himself available in a particular planet, and then all the devotees of Lord Rama get an opportunity to worship him and to serve him in that planet. So the spiritual world is full of spiritual planets, and in every planet, it is the same Supreme Lord in his different aspects. He is in his different expansions. He is present, and all the devotees are present there. And that world is not Dukkalayam Ashashvatam. That is known as a Satchit Ananda world. Sat means eternal. Here everything is temporary. People are forced to die. There is no death at all. It is eternal. Chit, it is full of knowledge. Here we are full of ignorance. We don't know where we came from, where we will go, what was our last life, what will be our next life, what is happening within the body. We have no idea. We don't have any idea of the inner universe or the outside universe. Isn't it? We are in this body, but we have no idea how the liver is working, how the stomach is working, how the pancreas is working, how the lungs are working, how the heart is working. We just don't know. Like a machine, it just works. We just eat food and we are happy. We're hungry, we again eat. So we have no idea of the internal universe. We don't have idea of the external universe. We look at outside, we see so many stars, so many skies. The scientists are saying we are part of a galaxy. This galaxy, of a solar system is a part of a galaxy. There are hundreds and thousands of such galaxies, and then there are hundreds and thousands of planets, stars, and then there's a huge universe. So we have no idea. We are in total ignorance, Achit. But in the spiritual world, we are full of knowledge. We will know everything. Can you imagine an existence with complete knowledge where there is no question, no unanswered situation, no puzzling, aspect challenging us? So Satchit and Ananda, it is full of bliss. Here we kept talking about all the different Niranandas we have. Birth is a Nirananda, old age is a Nirananda, disease is a Nirananda, there is no happiness, death is a Nirananda. And not only that, day-to-day life, there are miseries caused by our own mind and body, Nirananda, no happiness. Miseries caused by other living beings, Nirananda, no happiness. Miseries caused by the nature. Recently, as someone mentioned, that there's a volcanic eruption in Iceland. Sometimes there are tsunamis, sometimes there is, earthquake, there is tornadoes, there are hurricanes. So there are so many things going on, all Nirananda. But in the spiritual world, is just Ananda. It is said, just like here it is said, Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. What is the characteristic classification of the spiritual world? It is said, Anandamayo Bhyasat. There is only Ananda, there is only bliss, there is only happiness. So this is what the spiritual world is all about. And one should aim to go back to spiritual world. And what is the process? That is mentioned in the 18th chapter, 65th verse. Krishna clearly says how to come back to him. He says, Manmana bhava madbhakto majjaji mam namaskuru mamaivashisi satyam te pratijani priyosime. So Krishna is giving practical instructions, very tangible activities we can immediately start acting upon and start achieving results. Right? Sometimes we see, somebody talks about, I'll tell you about a particular technique or a mechanism through which you can solve a particular problem. And we are eagerly waiting. What is it? What is it? What is that solution? Right? What is it that I need to do? And suddenly, if he reveals, you feel, oh, very nice. So here Krishna is also revealing. What is that? Manmana bhava madbhakto. Always think of me and become my devotee. How can we do that? How can we think of Krishna? We should know about Krishna to think about him. Just the name not sufficient, right? So we should read Bhagavad Gita to understand what is Krishna. And Manmana, always think of him. How to think of him? The formula is given in the current day and age by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by Lord Krishna himself, and Srila Prabhupada has spread it, is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. When we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chanting, we are naturally thinking of Krishna. So Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto. And if you are always thinking of Krishna, you're understanding Krishna, you're chanting his name, naturally you'll become his devotee. So Krishna is saying, become my devotee, Mad Bhakto, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto. Mad Jaji is saying, worship me. It's very simple to worship Krishna. Very simple. You can offer simple agarbatti, offer some patram pushpam phalam toyam, yome bhaktya prayachati. Everything is actually very simple, very clear. Krishna is saying offer a fruit, a flower, little water, or patram pushpam phalam toyam. Or a fruit, flower, water. You can offer this. When we offer this, what happens? Yome bhaktya prayachati. So then we become his devotee. So in this way, Krishna is saying, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, always think of me, always chant my name. Mad Bhakto, by chanting his name, we become devotee. Madhyaji, worship me. How to worship? Simple. Offer a fruit, a flower, a leaf, and some water. You become his devotee. And Madhyaji, Mam Namaskuru. Pay obeisances unto me. How difficult is it to pay obeisances? Very simple. You just bow to the deity. You have small altar, you have temple, you have a picture. Bow to the deity. What will happen if you do this? Mam Evashyasi. Krishna is saying, you will come to me. And then he's saying, Satyam te. He's saying, this is true. Krishna is reassuring. I was like, oh, we'll come to you just by worshipping you? Yes, Satyam te. And then he's saying, Pratijani. He's saying, I'm giving a promise if you still don't believe. Krishna is giving 3 levels of security. First, he's saying, if you do this, you'll come to me. And you might have some doubt. He's saying, no, this is true. You will come to me. Even if there is another tinge of doubt remaining, Krishna is pushing that away also. What is he saying? Pratijani. That is a promise. Well, one would think, oh, will Krishna stick to his promise? He's saying, yes, because Priyosi me, you are very dear to me. How can I break a promise given to such a dear person like you? So this is the conclusive verse, a conclusive instruction of Bhagavad Gita and Lord Krishna is by going back to Krishna, we will not have repeated cycle of birth and death. We will be known as Mahatma, and we would have attained the ultimate perfection. And that is all possible by simply taking up a simple process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, doing some simple worship of offering some fruits, flowers, water, vegetarian dishes to the Lord, and cultivating devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Just by this simple process, one will definitely go back to Krishna. So I would like to conclude here. I'd like to thank you all for participating. And I would like to request all of you to please take a minute to think how in your life you can apply these principles. And if you're already applying, how in your life you can maximize, if you can do more. There's always a scope for improvement. If you're chanting, there's always a scope for chanting more. If you're reading, there's always a scope for reading more. If you're doing, various other things in the service of Lord, just see how you can maximize it. So that way, our lives will be perfect, and hopefully, we will never again have to take birth again in this material world, and never again have to deal with different kinds of pandemics and calamities and only disappointing things in this material world. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Jai Shila Prabhupada.